Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode number 75 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Excited to have on today our good friend, Chris Ross. Chris is the co-host of the Win-Win Effect podcast. Sit back, everyone. Great conversation. Enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. We got a special guest I'm so excited to have on. I was actually on his podcast, the Win-Win Effect, a couple weeks prior. And Chris, what's up, brother?
Man, I'm good. You see it. You see it. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show to, try to bring some type of value to your listeners. And I'm a huge fan of your show as well. My team, definitely when they were doing some edits and small edits for our episode where you came on our show, they were loving it. My team, it's like my biggest fan. As my team. So they were digging the podcast episode. I can't wait for that to come out, but thank you so much again for having me on.
This is awesome, brother. So how I always start off my podcast is I allow the audience to get to know where you currently are, what you're currently doing, and then we just take it from there and have a good conversation. So Chris, what are you right now? You're in the UK, but what are you currently doing? What project you're working on? You obviously have the Win-Win Effect podcast with your host. Mm-hmm. Let's start talking, buddy. So what are you up to lately?
Lately, here's the thing, man. Like when they said that, COVID, it throws a wrench in everything. I know that we've had a prior conversation to this briefly. It didn't take me long to make the proper adjustments and move, right? I'm not going to sit around and wait for things to happen. You can kind of anticipate the changes or adjustments that you need to make sure you're going to exceed your expectations of whatever you're trying to accomplish. From all the other things that I do, I have activities where I get paid, and then I have activities where I'm serving. Yeah. This is stuff where I serve. This is my way of giving back to the community and hopefully sprinkling some type of level of knowledge and helping people or maybe whatever they're trying to do in life. I always tend to always go back to the things that have helped me in life and helped me in my journey, spiritual, whatever, that's allowed me and given me the opportunities to make an impact with companies, corporations now with just different capacity, but it all started with me first. Yeah. And that's what I'm working on also with the co-host of the show, the Win-Win Effect, West Bays. I'm a big fan of his. We've known each other for a long time.
I was going to say that. When did you guys meet? How did that whole relationship start?
Wow. Let me see. So we met probably, I would say, close to 5 years ago. I was indirectly enrolling students for a program, and I was bridging the gap, aligning the processes. This is what I do for a living. Yeah. From sales, marketing, operation, and fulfillment for one company. And he came through, not a student, but he came through as a business type of consultant. And once we kind of met, it's kind of like one of those things where you meet people. It's just like how we met.
Connect.
We're like, wow. Yeah. And of course, he has his own businesses. I have my own. And I've done things, and we're now doing things together. That's how it kind of helped with the Win-Win Effect. That's where it comes from. Yeah. It's like, damn, we should probably record these phone calls that we have. Yeah. And I've been asked for years to do podcasting, and I'm like, nah, man, I got time for this shit. I'm moving. So that's what we do, and that's kind of how we've developed a friendship, and over the years, and now it's whatever he feels, I feel. It's like awesome. Whatever he's going through, he's a brother. That's how I look at him. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So, do you guys have any ventures together currently, or just you do, huh? You want to?
Yeah, we have a couple. The newest one we have is called WinJet. It's where we're injecting companies with a winning mentality, and that's come from the Win-Win Effect. Obviously, where it started off just as my show kind of thing. Yeah. I recorded a couple episodes, and I called them, and I was like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. Just like talking into a microphone. There's so much in there that, there's so many different directions I can go. So the first couple seasons, he was there to kind of, and the same thing he does now for the show is communicate my crazy to the audience.
Yeah.
And makes more sense of it. He has a beautiful way, eloquent way of.
He's very eloquent. I was watching some of his talking. Yeah, very eloquent.
Yes, he's such a smart human being. And I'm so blessed to have him just even be in my, in each other's presence.
Yeah.
And he was able to get out the information. The first couple of seasons, it took off. Luckily, I'm blessed. I thought maybe my mom will listen. I don't know. And, and it's just all the companies and corporations that we're making an impact with. So when we started the Win-Win Effect, went to the third season, started bringing on guests like yourself. Yeah. We're now in the fourth season. It goes back up. And see, Apple's weird, man. I don't know about the distribution and all the other stuff that you have going on with the downloads. Yeah. It goes up and down, up and down. Like we'll be top ranked number 3, and then we're out like the next day. How does that happen? But
it's crazy as the amount of podcasts, and you have to realize since the pandemic, I don't know how you are, but I started this podcast in May. It's taken off. We're getting 15,000 downloads an episode. What I'm even trying now, but it feels like on a weekly basis, I'm getting somebody asking me to start a podcast. Information. They want help. They want guidance to start a podcast. And I try to help it wherever I can, and it's the amount of podcasts. Like in Canada alone, I think we have like 10, 12,000 entrepreneurial podcasts. Right. So it's whoever, when it goes up and down, it's whoever put a podcast that day. So that popularity could change by the hour. Is whoever's listening to that podcast. So the numbers, it's crazy. The numbers just go up and down, right?
It's nuts. But you could, obviously my team, what they do is they go through each platform and add up all the downloads and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, make a long story short, we had crazy success, and people are raving about it, and which is just so nice to see. And people like submitting feedback forms in, telling us how the guest was, because this show is not about me anymore. This show's about who I'm speaking to, and that's our job. That's our moral obligation with our listeners to make sure that we're bringing guests on. That we don't talk about me. I'm talking about you. Like, what is your story? What are you about? I mean, how are you making an impact? What are some of your experiences in your journey? It doesn't have to be entrepreneur. I mean, and just like I think on your show, you had some guests that come from sports, right? Yeah. And you could take all those, you could transfer those types of the skills into business and really excel. It's all about winning. You have to have that mentality. 100%. That's where WinJet comes from.
Yeah.
Is that now I've done, and just to kind of give your listeners a little bit more context behind it, what I've done in my career is I guess you would say made my bones in entrepreneurship coming from the sales industry.
Yeah.
And the sales, and I say that word, but we're all salespeople. The moment you were born, when the doctor slapped you in the ass, you were selling him on your cries and not slapping you anymore. Okay. All right. So we're all a sales. Anyone can be influenced.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they do it into a way, the word you manipulate. Manipulate, it's not a bad word. It has the intention behind it. That's what changes. Yeah. So I've studied years and years and years of psychology and the human brain on what motivates people, what turns people off, and the triggers and emotional patterns and all the cycles and yada, yada, yada. So I've done this for years and years.
Seconds. So have you studied NLP?
Yes, I like it, and I agree with some of it.
Okay, I love that.
Follow through is awful. There's no accountability. I mean, they can persuade you to do something, but they're not going to follow through.
I love that. Yeah. It's funny because I'm actually about 3 weeks away from becoming a master NLP, and through this whole program, and it's a national, internationally certified program. So it's legit.
Right.
I could probably take about 7 or 8 things out of it that I will utilize myself towards clients or towards other people. But there's a big chunk of it you won't utilize, right? Because there's a lot of psychiatry stuff in there. A lot of just mind thinking, mind games. And so it's very important that you could suck in the parts, which is a lot of it has to do with sales. NLP is great for sales. So sorry, continue with that. I just wanted to ask you.
No, I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, they're not going to understand. They'll try to use it all the way.
Yeah.
And they're not going to form their own opinion. They don't want to break that pattern or whatever it might be. You got to take what works for you. And that's any advice I can give any salesperson out there. If you're a young salesperson, don't you can gain a bunch of knowledge, of course. I'm not saying you don't read books, but don't follow them to the T.
Yeah.
You need to take out what works for you and what's effective and debunk the rest of it and get it out of there. I live and die by this.
Yeah.
If it's not in the best interest of whoever I'm working with, then I'm not going to point them. I can point them in the right direction, but I'm not going to make them do something they don't potentially want to do. That's going to create a lot of buyer remorse. Buyer remorse is bad for business.
100%. I love that.
Bad for business. So that's where I come from in the education world. I went from an online type of space, went to an online type of space, but I come from the education fields like trade schools in America.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned and honed in on my craft on really qualifying a buyer. So a lot of the salespeople today, they talk about, oh, it's all about being authentic. And that's where it all comes from. Yeah. But I felt like I'm a decade ahead than a lot of other people when I went to an online space, and now I went back to the education field, and now I'm built a corporation, which was started off just as myself and my team. Now it's grown to about 300 and something employees, which is just crazy. Yeah. And just like yourself, when we had a conversation, a lot of people that say you're not born with entrepreneurship. Well, you kind of are.
Yeah,
I believe you are, and depending on when you were exposed to the other way of thinking.
Yeah, you can even put a different dial tone on it. Where is it entrepreneurship, or is just that inner drive, that inner hustle?
Mm-hmm. You got to move.
It's like we talked about that in our last conversation. Is your top tier athletes? What's going to separate the top tier from the middle tier? It's the guys that are going to just outwork everybody, have that drive, not be fearful to take opportunity. Right. So
yeah. Like outworking people and hard work is just a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Before they would say, oh, you got to work hard. We got to work smarter. Like it's what you're talking about, working smarter and learning how to leverage. Sales is all about leverage, and so is entrepreneurship. When you learn how to leverage other people's skills and attributes to get you to where you want to go, it's going to make your life easier.
100%.
In any type of form. I don't care what industry you're in. If you learn how to leverage and work together as a unit, one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, that success, everyone's got to beat on that same drum, that beat on that drum and live it. And if they're not, get them out of there. I've actually went into corporations, Jeff, and fired like the top person because they weren't the right fit for the company. Yeah. They were producing. It's hard to say that to a CEO when they're asking you to mentor them. They'll go, hey, Chris, what is your take on this person? I'm like, well, you need to fire them. That's a hard conversation. It's like, well, they're producing 70% of my revenue. Well, think about what can happen if you can train the rest of your staff to hit those types of numbers. And that's why you're paying for me, right? That's why you're paying for my services and my company's services, to teach everyone on your staff how to do this morally and ethically.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
If the top person, and they're seeing the top person making these numbers, and they're not living by that same those core values, then you're making it okay. Oh, they can make a bunch of money and they can produce revenue for the staff and revenue for the company, and they can do things and they can step over that line. That's one thing that I live and die by. And I say with so much passion and authority behind what I'm saying, is as a salesperson, once you take your foot and put it over that line, you can't go back.
I think you use that towards a lot of aspects of life, but I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because now you're telling your mind, your subconscious mind, that you can get away with it.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're going to lose. You're going to lose.
One thing you said there, and I love that, and I always turn business and sports, I connect them very closely. And you're talking about your top tier CEO not living by what they're trying to preach. Mm-hmm. You could go by it like a top athlete, the highest paid athlete on a baseball team, and not running it out to first base. It's the same thing. Everybody on that bench is watching that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Machado, for example, like people are watching that and seeing that on the bench and be like, hey, if our best player is not running out, why should I do it?
You got to hustle. So it goes back to that word, hustle.
100%. So that dives into another topic you're very passionate about. Let's dive into Chris playing baseball in high school. How much was that?
I knew you were going
big
to throw me a curveball, man.
how big a part of your life was that?
It was a huge part of my life. I think, and of course, we'll lean into this.
Yeah.
My dad is an amazing person. And my older sister was born handicapped. For the listeners who don't know my story, my sister was born handicapped, and she was given a diagnosis at 4 years old that actually when she was born, that she was going to make it past 4. Luckily for her, she was handicapped, so she didn't understand that diagnosis. Okay. She made it to the 18 years old and, passed away, which is very traumatic for myself, considering I grew up in the same crib as her. I didn't know anything was wrong. There's like pictures. They have so many pictures of me.
Yeah.
As a kid, I'm sitting on her lap in her wheelchair and her just dying laughing, and I'm just screaming laughing and whatnot. And my dad's had to, make a lot of sacrifices and work 2 to 3 jobs when healthcare sucked, and it kind of still sucks in America.
Yeah.
But when he had to, compromise his quality of life, home life, because of how much money he had to make to be able to provide, and he still didn't miss one game and coach me.
That's
not one game, not one.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this. Fatherhood is something very close to my heart and something I have a passion for helping others with, and hearing that, I just get goosebumps, right? I mean, that's the whole.
And I'll never forget it.
Yeah, no, of course you won't. I mean, that's what fatherhood does, right? Is that's an impact. Like I'm gonna take it to me for 2 seconds, but my father worked. It was blue collar, worked at Ford Motors, 2 weeks day, 2 weeks night. He had every opportunity back then. Working at Ford Motors in Canada, you're making 30 something bucks an hour. And if you worked weekends, you're making time and a half for triple time.
Yes, time and a half. Yeah. He worked shift work, man.
Yeah.
So you 4 on 4 off, and then working doubles and all kind of stuff. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So my dad had the opportunity of working every weekend and making triple time and having a better life. But he decided to make sure he was home every weekend with us, because 2 weeks during the month, we wouldn't see him. He knew that. So the weekends were very important for family time. And he was home every weekend, never worked one weekend. So having a father that's there for you when you're growing up, you might not realize it. When you turn our age, Chris, it just hits home. And it's like, wow, like how important was that? Especially when you become a father yourself, how important was it? How precious was it? And how lucky we were to have that opportunity to have that. 100%.
Blessed.
So continue that. Sorry about that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. With him, like me being kind of exposed to that, and my dad he was the only person in, he's a big, huge family on his side. And he was the only male that didn't join the military like his father and whatnot. But he grew up in I wouldn't say abusive relationship with his father and his mom. They grew up in a different time.
Yeah.
It was acceptable to yell at you and beat you, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's showing, that's something that I learned, and it was actually something, and it was not his fault. He had no other way of learning. It wasn't like he beat me or anything. It was the way that he would communicate and speak. It was very hard. Okay. Yeah. And that's where I learned when I went to the military, and people are like screaming at you off the bus. I'm like laughing at them. Like, this is it? This is all you got? I've been yelling at my whole life. Like nothing was ever good enough. Like I would go 4 for 4 and get, and try to steal third and get thrown out at third base. I'm going to hear about it all the way home. And I learned that, from a very young age, and nothing in life is going to be ever handed to you, ever.
Yes, 100%.
And you're going to have to hustle and move. And I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed, even for the bad and the things that make you feel uncomfortable. But it's all about, going back in and realigning things, rechanneling and making more sense of it, understanding a certain trigger, removing that anchor of an emotion and that story tied into that, and understanding that was there to serve me a purpose for later in my life.
100%.
You got to go back and realign everything. And a lot of people that you get, and I meet so many people that they, get to a 7-figure mark and they lose it all. And it all comes back to is unalignment.
Yeah. Alignment. I mean, there's different ways in alignment, balance. There's different ways of looking at it. And I like what you said about that anchor part, because there's different ways of looking at the anchor too, right? Mm-hmm. It's as much as your father, like I said, he worked a lot of hours. He was a very aggressive and strong character around you, but that family
and very loving, by the way, very loving. I grew up in a very loving family. It's just when I screwed up, it was the discipline.
Yeah,
the way
but
that you discipline. Yeah.
but if you could look back, everything that surrounded your father he was anchored to his family. At the end of the day,
Yes.
everything was for his family. So having a strong anchor point with your family allows you to do so much more. And I find this even entrepreneurs, if you could learn how to be anchored to one spot with your family and have your understanding of your surroundings, no matter how far you're pulled out or where you go, you're always going to be pushed back to your anchor point, which I think is very important. So baseball wise, this for the listeners to know, what position did you play? And
pretty much I played I learned how to play every position.
Yeah.
You can't tell right now, but I was a speedster, right? I can run a little bit, I was pretty quick for a white boy. Okay. So not that it sounds a certain way, but you know
where did you grow up? You're obviously
Charleston, South Carolina is where I'm from originally.
Perfect, yeah.
Growing in the South, I played pretty much every position, but I had pretty good hands. So I played shortstop and then moved to second, then moved to outfield, just utilizing my speed. Yeah. I was always a leadoff guy, which that's speed. So definitely I learned, even in not just in baseball, but playing football or basketball, I learned how to use my speed to overcompensate my lack of height. If I put it to you lightly, my dad he's 5'5", 5'6", and I'm 5'9", and my mom will tell a great story about when I was, like a kid, like at 3 years old, and you don't remember anything. Yeah. I used to sit there and pray at night, and you say your prayers, like, please don't let me be short like my dad. It's like, man, I'll tell you what, if I was like over 6 foot, I probably would have made something, right? But that's obviously, a limiting belief right there. So, but I love playing ball, man. I still do. I just can't physically anymore that well.
So you're a big baseball fan. Your team is?
Braves.
I know it is.
Don't
Braves.
Bring it up. Yeah, Braves. I tell you what, man, it's hard to be an Atlanta Brave. I got the best of it though. It was from 1991 to 95, they were good and won a championship 95, and after 95 there's heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. The damn Yankees, man. I love baseball. I love every team in their own little way, but there's certain people and players that were back then, I'm like, it drives me insane. But huge Braves fan.
We're obviously, I'm from Toronto, Canada, so we had your hand in was it 93 or 92?
I don't want to talk about 92, 90. Yeah, I don't want to talk about
93 as well. There you go. 2 years there. Mm-hmm. So business wise, now you started the podcast. Your podcast is your way of giving back, which I love. It's if you could be in a situation where your knowledge, you've built this knowledge, you've built this wealth of just like almost like an encyclopedia over the last few years in sales and business, and you're giving back with that. Where do you see the podcast going? Where's your idea with this podcast? Do you want to turn into more? Do you want to turn into more of an educational platform eventually?
Eventually, yes, but it won't be just a win-win effect like podcast, as in type of. The way I look at it, in this world that we live in right now, anybody can call themselves anything they want to call themselves. Everyone's an award best-selling author. We talked about the coaches in one of our previous meetings.
We're going to talk a little bit about that because that's an interesting topic.
And I see all these guys like in gals becoming a coach.
Yeah.
And what are you a coach of? You haven't accomplished anything. Like what have you done?
We had a deep.
Yeah. What have you done? Like to be able to call yourself that. So if it's free, it's me, and that's kind of like the way that I live in that type of space. And I mean, I've made a decision, to come out the podcast and work on my personal brands. Why a lot of people, they know of me, but they don't know that I was the guy behind the companies that were pulling some of the strings and making some of the moves in the education space. Yeah. Now that I've come out with my personal brand, now I'm a lot more out there. Yeah. And of course, people are like, oh, you should have your own program. And I'm like, well, that's all your bullshit right here. Like I know my lane, and my lane is making an impact on companies and corporations. And that's why I got the residual income that I do have, called it mailbox money, where I'm from in the South. Yeah. That's why I have the income, and that's why I've done very well for myself. And I'm very blessed. Yeah. But if I had to answer your question and put some type of target or goal
goal,
there
yeah,
on what
yeah.
I kind of see. Just trying to get to a larger audience. I mean, that's kind of like something that, it's important for me, not just to bring on, because I didn't want to be labeled as a sales podcast, because it started off just from my journey in sales. And obviously I made that transition years ago, man.
Yeah.
Like diving into entrepreneurship. I mean, we don't talk about the huge portfolio I have, and obviously in a real estate. We're going to talk about, some of the major investments that I made that I'm silent partners for, that I'm doing extremely well in. Is when you're an entrepreneur and you make that shift, it's kind of like you can kind of tip your hat to certain salespeople, but I'm not I hate being called a salesperson. I hate it. It drives me insane because I'm not that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
It drives me insane. So if going back to the question, if I could it's all about making collective impact, man. If I can, just like your show, like if someone's listening to this and if I can say something and it's going to spark some type of interest and go, all right, man, maybe I can do something. I give them maybe just, they can turn that belief into a strong conviction and they go take action and make something positive happen in their life. That's enough for me. I'm happy.
How's your, okay, I this is something that's close to my heart too, and I always talk about this. When I was 19, I had a mentor. We talked about this off the air, that helped me out with sales, and it was pretty insane that we're looking at 23 years ago. I'm overaging myself. 23 years ago, this guy was standing there. I'm 43, so 23 years ago, this guy was standing there with building rapport, building commonalities, building stuff like that. He was helping me understand sales and build a sales foundation and things that 20 something years later, I'm sitting there and it's like I'm relearning again. It's pretty amazing. Where's your belief of, and I always say this, is teaching the younger generation sales? And this is something I think I always talk about. It should be implied in school, in high schools, like teaching sales courses. That's something you think you would dive into?
That's a really good question. And I love how you frame that and the backstory behind it. Yes and no.
Okay.
I've read so many books over the last probably decade.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's all about gaining more knowledge and then debunking the things that don't work and picking out the things that will work for you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Of course.
We're in an era right now in sales where it's an information era. Yeah. They want the information now.
Yeah.
And then it's a good chance that they're, requesting information about a company or Googling it. They know all the information, the product knowledge.
Yes.
They know the information. You need to connect. It's the person that connects the fastest, the quick, in the most authentic way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes an impact with people.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. You should be teaching your kids this when they're one, on how to connect with someone and being present in the moment and having a conversation, because that's one thing that we're always looking for in life and striving for is love and connection. That's part of the commonality and going back into building rapport. Yeah. You need to have love and connection. Yeah. If you're connected to people and you're connected to your buyers, you're connected to your company, you're connected to whatever, they're going to feel something from you and a certain emotion. And that's done through repetition, and it's done through a lot of empathy and understanding what people are going through. Yeah. And that's something that I live and die by, is that I want to make sure, I don't care what company that I'm involved in, if my finger's on a pulse and I can feel that heartbeat, I know what adjustments I'm going to need to make, because I'm going to feel that from them.
Okay, very cool.
I just don't want to be the guy, the coach.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no. I don't want to be he's the best in the world, or he's this and this, and I don't want to be that fake ass guru. And you get these gurus, and you can call me on their stage and me go on their shows. I'm going to rip them wide open.
I love that.
I'm still waiting. There's just certain names that know, and if they're listening to this, they know that I know, and we know, and our teams have been communicating. And if I ever get on that show, there's a good chance you're going to give me that torch. You're going to give me that torch. Like, I'm passing the torch. You got it. And I'm like, yes, I know. And that's probably why that you're not really open to me having a conversation with you about some of the things that you currently do for a living, because the jig is up, man. Jig is up.
Let's dive into that.
Right.
Do you, with the whole world of social media, And I had a guest on. We talked about this off the air, and I had a guest on the other day saying, it feels like, especially with Instagram, it's like social media experts are selling information to social media experts that are forwarding information to social media experts and then trying to rebuy to social media. It's this constant cycle of everybody trying to sell everybody. And if you go to your inbox, your DM box, I'm sure you're like me. It's just constantly somebody's trying to sell you a package or sell you something. So it's
trying to get you to verified. I've had a lot of these lately. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I get that.
My team sends me like, "Oh, you want to be verified?" I'm gonna verify myself every day. But yeah, I know your point.
Yeah,
I see a lot of this, and it's just like they push and push, and they're product pushing. That goes back to what I was saying about the connection. They're not connecting. And if they would actually read my profile, Google me, then they probably shouldn't be trying to sell me in a DM. Do your research.
Do your research. I love that part. I think that's a huge thing that people have to understand is do your research with somebody before you actually try to communicate with them. I'll
give them a tip though, if they're listening to this. I'll give them a tip. Here's how to slide into my DM, okay? If you were to slide into my DM, you need to do it.
I'm going to make this our little sneak peek.
Here's how to slide into my DM, okay? So here's how to do it. If you want to slide into my DM for get my attention, here's how to go about doing this. Pick out something that you've seen or heard or consumed at whatever level.
Yeah.
However you like to consume content. Pick something out from the show or pick something out from whoever I'm speaking to. And then drop that as the first line. That's how you're going to get my attention. Hey, I seen you on blah, 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 blah. I appreciate this. This is what I took away from it. Now you got my attention. And now it's to the second phase of the conversation. Like, what type of level of impact can you bring me? I am not going to go to the Dave Meltzers, which we both know, and you both had them. I guess we both had. I'm not going to go to the Tony Robbins. I'm not going to go to the Jim, whatever. In time, Albert Einstein, who gives a shit? I'm not going to go to these people and say, hey, can you do this for me? I'm going to say, here's what I'm observing and here's how I can make an impact with you. Would you be open to having a conversation about that? If not, I still appreciate the level of content and what you said in that first line of that sentence. I still appreciate that, and I'm so grateful that I came across your content. Thank you again.
Yeah,
done.
I love that. I had a guest on the other day, and he was giving. It's called connections. His way of connecting with individuals, and it's so awesome the way he does it. And this guy has worked with the A's of A plus, of things. And how he's done it is he'll never go to if he wants to get a hold of Chris, he won't get a hold of Chris. He's gonna start following your assistant, and then he'll follow your assistant's friend. And he'll start communicating with your assistant's friend. And then he'll communicate to your assistant. From your assistant, he goes up
levels to it. There's levels to it.
So many levels to it.
100%.
And then he says, once you finally get to that level, exactly what you said, he broke it up pretty much precisely just what you said is, it's not what, you don't go to somebody and say, hey, what can I do for you? No, you should already know what value I could bring to you. So saying, hey, this is the value I could bring to you. This is what I could help you with. Would you want me to have my help?
The conversation is how.
100%. 100%.
How? How can we both get involved? How can we support each other? It's all about the how. It's not about the what or the who or the why.
Yeah.
No, it's how. How can we work this out together?
Yeah.
It would be a travesty if we didn't get involved.
Yeah, I love
it would
that.
literally it would be doing like everybody in the community a disservice if we didn't figure out how we can work together.
Are you trying to sell me, Chris?
No, but that's the level. But there's a strong belief. There's a strong conviction behind how I make an impact.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's perfect. So with yourself. I'm going to bring back some personal stuff here, and we'll take it from there.
I'm open book, man. Go right in.
Your sister is obviously a big impact in your life, and she was here for a very short time, but she had a huge impact in your life. Let's go through that part of the story, like upbringing with your sister, and obviously we talked about children with challenges and stuff like that because of my son. So let's talk about that a bit. Like your sister's impact on you is a little more personal, and what she meant to you, and what did you learn from her? Because I'm sure there's tons of lessons you've learned from her. Let's dive into that, buddy.
There's a lot of things that I learned, and I had, of course, in that type of situation, you learn indirectly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can't learn from, you learn indirectly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that I did learn about my family. I learned how I would run away from pain,
Interesting.
even myself.
Yeah.
And I'll clarify. There was a certain age that I got to, I think I was around like 10 or 11. There was a place called the Coastal Center. And it was where my mom couldn't take care of it, but it was right down the street from my parents' house. You think that was an accident? No, it was on purpose.
Yeah.
So it was right down the street, and and I've seen her every day. But my mom would go inside, my sister would go inside and see Sue Ellen, what was her name?
Yeah.
And I would take my basketball with me. I had a basketball goal outside. I would go in and do the bare minimum. Yeah. But there's a different emotional connection that I had with her than my sister. And she had her own emotional connection with her by herself. And I'm not trying to take away from that.
Yeah.
But how I used to deal with certain feelings is I wouldn't run away, but I would just get away from it. I didn't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. That was my way of not dealing with the emotions, because I wasn't equipped, and I didn't have the tools that I have now to understand what was happening. Yeah. This goes back to how I make an impact with people. And one thing that I did learn is you don't need to verbally communicate with someone. You can communicate a lot of different ways. And I'll make an example. Like, she couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. The only thing she could pretty much do is lay there and breathe and fight. So I learned, you can learn a lot about somebody when they breathe through tubes to breathe. And I'm telling you, man, I learned how to fight. It's like if there's air in my lungs and just being grateful for whatever, like I'm grateful that I can walk. I'm grateful I can talk. I'm grateful that I have a mind that that understands information. That's something that I'm going to be forever grateful for.
And I wish most people, you don't want to go through situations like that, but that feeling, those raw feelings of being grateful for what you have is something I wish in general we'd be able to pass on to more people, because a lot of people are not grateful for what they have. So,
you wake up in the morning and you take that and you open your eyes and you take a breath.
Grateful. Yeah.
That's what I think Meltzer talks about this. I think I saw in I don't know, maybe it was something in content. Maybe it was a personal conversation I had with him. Yeah. It's like you end your day saying thank you and you start your day saying thank you.
Yeah,
I challenge people to do that.
Yeah.
If you do that, it's really difficult to start dwelling on the past and dwelling on bullshit and dwelling on the stuff that you want to do and start feeling certain emotions and negative emotions when you're just grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of times in my life where I've become a little bit more unaligned and not living my life the way that I live it right now every single day. But I know we're all creatures of habits, all of us. And the more you do things, the easier it will become. It's repetition. Now it's part of my subconscious. My ritual is deep in my subconscious. If I don't do these things every day, if maybe I'm an hour off, I feel I'm off. Like something's wrong.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important that those rituals so important.
Right. Another thing that I did learn from my sister is, and I don't want to get choked up here. The thing that I did learn is, goes back into the being grateful, being able to live in that bliss. You ever seen someone that is unfortunate, born into a situation? I know you're a son and stuff like that. I'm going to dive into this. But when you're someone that doesn't understand anything, but I would walk into the room and that connection that I had with her, I can hear her, even when my voice started changing and crackling at certain times, she knew exactly who I was and just start screaming of joy. Yeah. That's something that I'll never forget in my mind, the way that she would, like my mom would call it a cue, like, because you really can't, the way that she would make a noise.
Yeah.
And she was so excited. And tears would be running down her face in pain, Jeff. Pain. And I'm talking about pain that I don't even want to feel what she was going through, and she would still laugh at just the hearing my voice and knowing my presence and knowing I was there.
Joy.
That's something that we run away from in life. I mean, think about it. When we're kids, we're jumping in a puddle, we're laughing. When's the last time that you laughed about something until you cried of joy?
I'll be honest myself. Like I do this. I have this all the time with my kids. Like
because you put in the work though.
I take the time to enjoy my kids. I don't know if that makes sense. Like we talked about this. I do the 3 to 7 every day. 3 to 7 o'clock is my family time. Phones are off. I don't do nothing else. And I could sit there with my kids. Like yesterday, I was home and my daughter, we just picked up a new camera set for the office and I had it at home. I'm like, hey, see her, she's 14. I go, read the instructions, learn how to use it for me. So she was going through it and she starts grabbing on this phone and doing 4K video around the house of the dog. And we sat there and watched this. She made a homemade movie in like half an hour and we were laughing our heads off. And I literally had tears in my eyes. And it's like, you can't, those memories, you can't break them. They're so special. They're so special. So I love that part of it. Right. And obviously with your sister, there was no selfishness there. There was just endless love. And I find that with my son, obviously my son's at a different situation and he's overcome a lot of his issues and his circumstances. But this kid is, I can't even explain it. His joy of life and his joy of just being around people, his smile is like infectious. Like this kid will not go to bed or not wake up. The first thing he does when he wakes up, the last thing he does when he goes to bed, he has to come give me a hug and a kiss. And that gives me goosebumps thinking about it because he's just that innocence, but that endless amount of love. He doesn't know any different. And I appreciate that with your sister, right? It's just like you said, it's that specialness, that connection you guys had. So you talked about your dad, you talked about your sister. What about your mom? How was her connection with you? Let's talk about that a bit.
My mom's I'm very close with all my family members. Like we have our own relationships, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't at least send a message and saying I love you, or maybe, hey mom, like can you send me some sweet relish because I don't have like it's a good thing. You don't get good, like they call it gherkins here in obviously the UK. But my relationship with my mother is very strong. Even more so now in the last year. With this pandemic and whatnot and not being able to travel. I mean, I'm just a blessed individual that I can get on a plane and fly first class anywhere I want to go right now. But now, right? So, it's difficult. I have 3 young nieces in the States, but go back to my mom. My mom was adopted twice, beat cancer, had 8 back surgeries during the course of the time that I was being raised. She's got a morphine pump inside of her body just so she's able to walk.
So tough woman.
Just tough cookie, right? Yeah. And I'm telling you, you wouldn't know this by the way that my mom would look. It's like small little Italian lady, and just like sweet as can be, okay? Yeah. But it's the toughest person that I've ever met in my life. And I've learned so much. I'm so grateful to have the family that I have. I wouldn't have made it through the past year. It's been one of the most challenging years of my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't without that connection, and without them, I wouldn't. And I'm a huge country fan. Like listening to country music. But not so much. I mean, because I don't like listening because you get some this emotional shit like Beer for Your Tears. But there's a song that was out. I don't know if it just came out. It was Luke Combs. It talks about like you don't see me, you should see you.
Yeah.
Like they're the reason I'm here.
Yeah.
They're the reason I'm here.
Yeah, that hits home. I mean, I say that about my parents all the time. I love that. So we talked about something the first time we met about you had a little present for your mom you're trying to set up.
Yes.
Is that still in the works?
Yeah, still in the works. Still in the works. I can't talk about it right now.
Okay.
But
okay.
Still in the works, and it's something that my mom was listening to this. She might, if I say a couple other things, she might pick up on it.
So we'll let it go with that.
We'll let it go.
Mama, you have a big surprise coming one day.
Yeah, it's coming. So, and it's something that
well deserved.
it's something that it's important to me to be able to experience it, to watch the inner joy that'll bring her.
Yeah.
Moms, I think it's a saying. It's like your mom's always your biggest fan. Well, she really is.
Yeah.
She really is.
Yeah, we're very. I mean, we're both in the same boat. We're very fortunate to have very caring moms that are still around.
Yes,
which are
very grateful for that.
Very grateful for that. Very grateful for that. We talked about this prior, as well as I'm 43 and I still call my mom every morning when I on the way to the office, and every
That's
night
so
before
important. I wish I did it
bed.
more. I wish I did it more throughout the day. Because it's difficult, man. I'm in the UK, so I'm like 5 hours ahead. When my parents, they don't figure out. Okay, it's 10 o'clock a.m. in the States or whatever time, and they're not going to go 5 hours. They're not going to do that. So sometimes I'll get phone calls at 1 o'clock in the morning.
But
I don't bring my phone in my room. I haven't, especially in the last year. I don't bring any technology in my room, so I don't catch it until the next day. So I'm playing catch up. I wish I did it more. And my younger sister, Megan, we have a very special relationship. It's kind of like, siblings.
What's the age
pick
gap?
on 4.5 years.
So pretty close still.
Pretty close, but she was I don't like my things being touched when I was a kid, like my toys. I'm like, she drove me nuts until, of course we love each other now. Even you wouldn't be able to tell, like we'll be having a conversation, and we might be picking on each other and horrible to each other. But as soon as you like take that foot over that line and go to say something to me negative, she's all over you. Like all over you.
Yeah. Sibling love is very important. Very, very, very important. I mean, I got stories of my sister. My sister is 6 years older than me, and I'm going to give you a quick little story. And I still remember this so clearly. I was maybe grade 5, grade 4, and I was walking home, and I got into a fist fight. I was getting into a fist fight with another kid my age. He was grade 4, grade 3. I don't know. It was like something like that. And the boy I got into a fight with, his older brother, which is probably about 5-6 years older than him, was there, and he grabbed me and he started beating me good. And out of nowhere, my sister was walking home with her friends, 6 years older. My sister decked this guy so hard. Until this day, I remember that. And you have those memories where it's like that connection you can't separate, right? Mm-hmm. So I love these. I love the sibling little stories. And it's crazy we were 6 years apart, so it was hard to have that gap. When she was in high school, I was in grade school. When she was done high school, I was in high school. So we never really connected through school. So as we got older and our lives changed, and I got married, now we're so much closer. And she's so close. She's like a mom to my 2 kids, right? So it's like you become she has no children on her own. So my children are her kids in a way. So you start, as you get older, you start appreciating them so much more. And you start caring about them so much more because now you have that time and that understanding as an adult, what they really mean in your life. So I love that part of it as well, right?
It all comes back full circle.
Yeah.
What's important comes back full circle. And a lot of people, they live life and they don't appreciate the time that they have. That's one thing that I'm a little bit more conscious of in the last probably 5 years of my life is the amount of time. Time is the only non-renewable resource in life. You can't get it back.
Yeah, I always say that. I love that.
You just can't get it back. And that's what my lifestyle has created for me is I bought more time for myself.
Yeah. Which is the whole thing of wealth equals freedom, right?
Yes, but then like Biggie has a great saying and a great song, more money, more problems. It's true. It's more money, more problems. However, if you have a good team around you and the right mentors, and that's what's so great about now. Could you imagine? I mean, I don't even know what would happen. Yeah, their podcasts were out 7 years ago, I think. I don't know. Probably. Yeah. I didn't listen to that shit. Right? I was reading books and moving, and I don't know, man. Like podcasting is not the way. I mean, especially right now with this pandemic, there's so many other podcasts.
Yeah.
It's just like you get oversaturated with so much content, and you got to go and siphon through all the bullshit to get to the ones you want to get to, and all the bullshit the ones to get to. It comes from the social media. I'm a huge loop with this. Goes into the social media and this fake ass fucking illusion that people project and put out that they're this guru. You ain't shit. You just got a good marketing team. But then after listening to a couple of shows, then they'll get to the ones that have substance. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're listening to this, congratulations.
You finally reached home.
Right.
I love it.
Right. So it's all bullshit. You know, I mean, social media it's all bullshit. I can go on a tangent, but
you're realize that no, you're my guest, so you could tangent all you want, but you're essentially people are projecting. We talked about this, their perfect image of their life, and that is why even with social media, like we talked about this on a personal level, I cannot hire a marketing team. I do my social media all on my own because
it needs to be you.
I want to put it like last night. We did a photo shoot with my family a while ago, and every once in a while I'll slap a photo just my family, and all I write is the word family. That's all I do. And it's just and if people like it, they like it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. It's not my issues. I don't care. I don't worry about the effect. I'm just putting out what's me. And if people like it, they appreciate it. Fantastic. If I'm helping people, fantastic. But you can't worry about that. You got to just do what's you and be real with it, right? And I love that. And the whole podcast with me is it was an outlet. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't have sponsors yet." I've been offered sponsors, Chris.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to do it. Yeah,
me neither. Because I'm using the platform as I'm using the podcast as a platform for branding myself, and I'm very honest with it. It's branding myself and branding my awareness because I've been entrepreneur for 24 years, but nobody knew what the hell I was in the real world, right?
Well, that's the whole point. And I mean, just to touch on what you're just saying, just real quick. Here's the thing. I learned this from somebody that that doesn't ever want to be called a mentor, and it's kind of like, and he taught me something. You never when you're chasing things, you need to find something to run away from as well.
Interesting.
And when you're chasing something, you're gonna run away from something else. You'll run faster. Okay. And when you're learning things about entrepreneurship, is the ones that have so much substance, they don't want to be in the limelight. That's a choice you need to make at some point in your journey.
Yeah.
When we made that pivot and putting our personal brands out there in our faces, it's just what's needed in today's marketplace. And it wasn't really needed 10 years ago.
Yep.
Now more so because of social media boom. It's all about credibility and that positioning. And that's where I'm talking about. It goes back to the loop back with the podcasting. People listening to dog shit, and they'll listen to dog shit, and they'll go and they'll listen to like 5-minute clip of the host talking about themselves. They don't shut the fuck up for the other listeners. And then it goes to a commercial, and then it goes back to them. And it's so broken up. Like, I'm the kind of person where we're a goldfish. You need to keep my attention. And if you're bringing on a guest, if you're the host, shut the fuck up and let them talk, you know? And when you're bringing that up,
do you have something in the back of your head? I'm not going to name names.
No. This has nothing to do with you.
Not me. But I'm saying in general, there's a couple podcasters that what you're saying right now, that's them.
Well, I know.
I'm visualizing it right now.
But that's kind of like what I've done my whole career is I've kind of like poke holes at the bear. Yeah. I'm like, like it is what it is. Like, if that's you, then make it shift.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, and this is something that I live and die by, man, is I pay attention to my audience.
You have to.
Pay attention to your audience. You have them pay you to solve their problem.
Yeah.
And if they don't pay, and I look at it as pay, is investing their time.
Yeah.
And if they're investing their time with listening to me, they're there for some type of level of maybe just connection that I have, but they're also there or the way that I'm asking certain questions to the listeners. You go into the show and you listen to my show, you'll never hear the same question.
Yeah.
You're not going to. Because I'm using my emotional intelligence. I'm using my way of positioning, and I'm using my funnel questions. I'm trying to get the information out. And that's what podcasting is all about. It's not for you to talk about your dog named Sally and you trying to sell this t-shirt or whatever that might be. It's not about that. It's about someone eavesdropping on your conversation.
I love that.
Like, wow, Jeff and Chris are having a conversation.
I love it. That's exactly, that was my mind set from day one. I love that.
And I love your show about that because, and I hope you didn't think I was trying to talk shit because I love your show. I mean, there's not a lot of shows that I will say that because, they get the sponsorships and like, oh my God, it gets to the point where it's like, oh man, people want to have that connection. It goes all the way back to it. I'll keep drawing his loop backs. And we did this in the last episode. We'll keep going back to this. It goes all about the connection. They want to feel connected to the listeners. They want to feel connected to the host. They want to feel connected to the guest that they're bringing on and whatever topic they're talking about.
Yeah.
They want to follow it. And that's what Wes does so great for our show. As he explains my crazy and our craziness and he explains it so well to the audience. They go, "Oh yeah, that makes more sense." And I'm like, I could be screaming into a microphone for an hour, and he'll say it and frame it for 5 minutes, and they'll get it. And I'm like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I
was listening to a couple of his clips and the other day, and he's very eloquent. He's very calm. I tell you, he's the way to talk. He talks very calmly, so it's just like it. Okay, let's talk now. This is
perfect yin and yang, man. Because I'm in your face, like it's.
But I'm like that too.
Yeah,
we're having a good conversation. Right. I love it. Yeah, I love that. UK, what got you there?
I met a beautiful woman. And
how many years ago was that?
Over 5 now.
Okay.
Met her when I was
in the U.S. or in the UK?
In the U.S. Yes, okay. I was in the U.S. and she was doing some work for a company, and she was contracted, and I was just starting off, and one of the other contracts and going international type of businesses. And I was like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing yet, but we met, and 9 days later, I bought a one-way ticket from Austin, Texas, from the U.S., flew out to the UK. Actually, I was in Phoenix, but then met her in Austin. Anyways, make a long story short, flew out and we traveled for a little while that summer, and then went back, and I took her back to my home, which I'm from, Charleston, South Carolina, which I don't do. I don't bring people to my family and be like, hey, meet this person. But it happened. And we had a great, phenomenal relationship. But just, unfortunately in the last year, it hasn't really worked out that well. We do have a young daughter. I've been here for 4.5 years now, which I do like being in the UK. It has its pros, but I'm a sports fan, and they don't have the same sports that I like to watch.
So have you got hooked on football?
Football
was soccer to America, but football.
It's like watching paint dry, bro, for me. Like,
a certain level.
I tried, man. And I don't play like PlayStation or any of that bullshit, right? But I've actually, that's something that has actually helped me be able to get my mind off of work.
Yeah.
And they've given me a game, and I was playing, and I was like, I couldn't get into it, man.
Even the game.
Even that shit. I did it to learn the game, and I learned the game, but it doesn't give me the feeling that I want of that release. That's what I'm looking for, a release. But if it's live, bro, I'll watch freaking paint dry, and I'll go watch badminton. I don't give a shit if it's live.
What about rugby?
Rugby's fun to watch.
Rugby is pretty.
People get hurt.
No shit. You watch some of these international rugby like championships. It's
just real.
These are 250-pound balls of muscle with no equipment going head to head.
No equipment, and they do they don't think it's like really. I think they do like what is it called? I don't even know what it's called.
I don't know, but I just know that if you're all they
do like this little huddle, and the next thing the ball comes out, and the next thing they run it, and the next full speed, and this guy's like 6'8".
But
if someone was running full speed at me at 6'8" and that amount of muscle, I would just die. I'd be like, oh my God.
But if you ever see when they're in these, and there's obviously, we're butchering the sport, but when they're in those huddles.
Forgive me for anybody in rugby, and I know I'm out in the UK, man. If you see me out in public, don't fuck me up, please.
But those huddles, they're stomping, they're biting, they're like, it's dirty ass real shit. These are tough fucking dudes.
When you watch the NBA and they're flopping around and doing whatever they're doing, it's just like they've made a mockery of the sport.
Are you hockey? Are you a hockey guy?
I can actually watch hockey and enjoy it. But from the South, I wasn't really exposed to that. But I did have a minor league club that went to. It's called South Carolina Stingrays. They won a couple of Riley Cups. It's like the minor league cup or whatever.
Then it was AHL.
Yeah, and it was fun to go to, man, because you go to it and it's just like really fun to watch. Like
and the
really
AHL
cool sport
and the
to
minor,
watch.
there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of
fights.
A lot of tough guys in the
like you get paid to fight. This is great.
Yeah. Are you into to talk about fighting? Let's ship it to the next level, which is my other business.
Boxing fan.
You are a big boxing fan?
I'm a huge boxing fan, man. I boxed I boxed my whole life growing up. I mean,
seriously?
Fighting. Yes, I can throw my hands a little bit. Don't let this pretty face fool you. Right?
There's two more things. I was going to go into one more area, but let's talk about boxing.
But MMA is different. That's different, man. These guys will, I tell you a story real quick before, so that way it gives the listeners a little something. I was in the military, and and I throw my hands a little bit. And boxing is all about footwork, right? And we can go into detail.
Yeah.
But I had pretty good hands on me.
Yeah.
But the guy was, the SEALs, and they train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? They train that way.
Yeah.
This guy's actually from Colombia. And he was like, Chris, if you spar with me, like, because you gotta, if you spar, I'll spar with you for 2 rounds or 3 rounds.
Yeah.
If you get on the mat with me, I'm like, you've lost your mind. No.
Yeah.
Anyways, lost a bet drinking, like maybe, I don't know, like a few months later.
Yeah.
And then the next time that we had to go to the, gym and train and whatnot, by the time we got back to the States, I got in there, man. I don't know what the fuck he put me in, man, but I thought my shoulder was going to pop off.
Probably a Kimura.
I don't know, man. He had me. It was like, I don't know what it was, man. I was like, and I was good until, I'm throwing my hands with him a little bit until he grabbed me. And that was it. So, huge boxing fan. I can't wait for, the Gypsy King. I can't, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury to fight Josh. I cannot wait for that fight.
Yeah, well,
I'm a huge man. I'm telling you right now. Like we talked about the Braves, we talked about all this other stuff.
Yeah,
boxing, man. I get so excited to watch a fight. So excited, and you know how like some people get really like hype watching a fight. No, man, I'm like watching all them. Like I know exactly what techniques when he fought Fury fought Wilder.
Yeah.
I knew before that. I was like, I was rooting for Wilder because I'm American.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I'm telling you right now, he keeps saying that he's not going to fight on his back foot. He's going to go after you. And I was like, man, is he really going to call his shot? And I was like, man, I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, he got his ass knocked out in the 15th round and got back up.
Yeah, that was like the Walking Dead.
He is telling him what he's going to do, and he tore his ass up.
Yeah,
that's one thing you learn about. You take that and transfer that over to entrepreneurship and just in life.
Yeah.
And Mike Tyson has a great quote, just to quote Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
You get punched in the face. What are you going to do now?
Yeah. They say that with MMA, right? You get a high level jiu-jitsu
guy. I love it. It's fun to watch,
on the ground, and he's a high level black belt. And all of a sudden he gets a couple times punched in the face, becomes a brown belt. Gets a couple more times punched in the face, becomes a purple belt. Because everything changes. Your game plan changes when you're getting punched in the face, right?
Right. Masvidal, was his name Masvidal?
Yeah.
Man. It was so upsetting to me to watch him lose the way that he lost.
Yeah.
Granted, he didn't get knocked out or anything. Just lost a decision.
It was a tough fight.
That was a tough fight for me to watch because I'm a huge fan of his. So if you're listening to this, and I don't know if that would ever be possible, but if you are, that was a great fight. And the one the level of disrespect to that guy that Ben, whatever his name is, he kicked him in his face.
Yeah.
The level of disrespect was needed. For that piece of shit. Was needed. And because of what he was doing and how he was taunting him.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
I'm going to dive one more thing, and then I have one more question before we get going today.
Sure. I hope we're not going. I'm not going to get a little chat.
No, we're
I
good.
just love our conversations, man.
No, I love this. No. Let's dive into the military.
Okay.
What age did you get into it? When did you leave, and how much did it impact your life, and what did you do? Because I know the history. I want the audience to know the history because it's a big part of you.
Best decision I've ever made in my life.
How old are you when you?
My sister passed away, I think 2 weeks before, 13 days before I turned 16. So I was 15, turning, sports guy, and I didn't really know what I'm going to do with my life. That caused a lot of confusion. When she passed away, my dad was there for my mom. I was there for my sister. I wasn't really dealing with my own bullshit. Yeah. It was my way of indirectly picking a job and picking something because I didn't see myself in college.
Yeah.
I just didn't, I could see myself playing ball or something.
Yeah.
But not like I hated school. Like I was good in school if I had to work on a test, and I'm dyslexic, so like reading a bunch of words all to go together.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I don't want to do this shit. I'm going to go in the military. So I drove boats my whole life. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go into the Navy. So what I did for the Navy is I drove boats. I actually drove the boats and the ships and whatnot, and that was my job. But when I went, I was attached to really cool units in the Navy. And if some of the guys are listening, some of them listen to pretty much anything I put out. They're proud of me.
I love that.
And I love these guys like they're like my siblings.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Everybody says it's a brotherhood that you can never separate.
And they're crazy unit, man. When I I just had a way of learning from great leaders, man.
Yeah.
And I took the core, they call it like punchlines. That's what they call it. But it's core values. We lived and die by that. So honor, courage, commitment. I live and die by those.
Yeah.
Those are my core values. I took the same things that I learned in the military and put it into my life. And it's made an impact. I wouldn't be who I am today.
No,
I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Oh, you turned from a boy to a man in the military.
100%. And I did it, and I needed to learn from a different source.
Yeah.
Not that my father wouldn't got me there. It's kind of like that book, right? It's like, what get you here won't get you there. Like, I needed to, and I was exposed to a lot of different types of cultures, and being from Charleston, I mean, you're not going to really get exposed to someone from Asia, someone from Tokyo, or some, you know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Yeah, you're not going to get exposed to that. Yeah. And I'm just so great that, of course, you could probably hear if I was sitting next to my father or my mom, the Southern accent and a little twang.
Yeah.
But I don't really have it a lot anymore. I think it's because I left home at 17, going at 18, and got out the military.
You were a baby. 17 is
I was
still
a baby, bro.
Man.
Like, I was a baby, man.
Yeah.
There's a picture, like, Veterans Day just passed recently, and I sent a picture to the staff, like my team. You can't tell from the way I look right now because obviously the sun doesn't really hit here in the UK that well. But like, I've really good skin complexion. But I was like, you could tell that I was from Charleston, and you little, the little Paisan guy, like I was,
So your
like,
parents are both Italian?
My dad's like kind of like a mutt. He's got Cherokee in him as well. My mom she was adopted, but she was Sicilian and Italian. So they,
so you have the European blood.
Yeah, a little bit.
Blood, so you have the little.
My mom gets dark, bro. Like in Charleston, that sun, I touch her. Woo! My grandmother, my granny, was like, that's another person, and my grandparents were huge influences in my life.
I love that.
Huge influences in my life. I'm just strong women I was raised around, and also strong men.
Yeah.
But that was part of my detriment growing up, was not learning how to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, you can be vulnerable, but I'm gonna send you home to your mom if you keep crying. You know what I mean? You can't show a woman, that type of emotion.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like the European mentality, right? That immigrant hard.
Right. Yeah, man. It's hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Hardcore. And that's why I think Wes and I connect, because Wes isn't from America, right? He comes from Lebanon. He fled and went to America and whatnot. And that's something that you learn, man. And
so Wes is located in the UK with you, or is he in America
still? No, he's in America. Yeah. So
he is, huh?
Yeah.
I thought he was in the UK with you. What part of the America does he live?
He lives in Michigan. Ann Arbor area. So not to give his address or anything, and people go like, "Oh, where the hell's Wes at?" Hey, Wes up in Ann Arbor.
That's pretty close. It's pretty close to the Canadian border.
Yeah, so he's right there. Yeah, definitely for sure. He can just go right out of Detroit.
Yeah,
if he goes down to Detroit, isn't it like some area of Detroit outside of that, right there with that lake? It's like on your part of Canada.
Yeah.
I've never been to Canada.
You got to come. Canada's nice. Toronto. We're from Toronto, Canada. It's just such a beautiful. It's probably one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's very multicultural, great restaurants. Everything's obviously changed. We're locked. By the time this airs, hopefully we'll be out of it, but we're back in the lockdown again. Here.
I got a great guest for you, man. I got a great. I got to tell you this.
Yeah.
Her name's Taraji, right? So she came on our show, and she's a real estate. Her mom and coming from that, man, I'll tell you right now, she's in Vancouver. I know it's not the same. Canada's huge, right?
But
she would be a phenomenal. She brought so many different types of listeners as a demographic to the show, and blew it out the water. This girl, and if she's probably hearing this, probably ears are burning probably right now. She is on fire. She was ranked, I think, the top real estate agent.
I know who she is, because I actually saw her. I saw edits.
Yeah,
I know who she is.
I'm telling about, like, she's going to be something to mess with. Like as in a real estate game. Something in the next decade to watch.
Yeah, Vancouver is like Toronto. It's a hot spot for real estate. I mean, Vancouver is so outpriced right now. It's insane. You can't buy nothing in Vancouver for less than a small little condo is 1.5 million in Vancouver. It's crazy right now.
That's something I'm very passionate about. We haven't even talked about the stepping up your game when it goes into investments and portfolios. Man, that's the way I look at that type of game. That's the end game for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just keep just investing and investing,
Every time I have 10 cents put aside, I reinvest it.
Right.
And I believe in property. I believe having that asset is
It's like leaving something behind too. It's like a little legacy.
Exactly. And it's just, if you buy it smart, it's always there. You're never losing. Even if the market does drop, you just hold on to it, because
it's just like stock market. It's go up and down.
It's going to come back, and it's always going to get stronger. Like if you look at the prices, I don't know how, I mean, obviously the UK is a different animal altogether, because if you're in London, it's so expensive. But I'll give you an example. When I first got married, I've been married for 17 years. And when I first got married, me and my wife, we had some money put aside. We bought it. We put a big chunk down. We bought a house, a nice 2-story, 2 garage, nice sized property house. We paid $240 for it, Canadian. You can't even give a down payment for a condo for that price right now.
No. You can't.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Pretty much anywhere. Right.
It's crazy. Like it's houses that were 200,000 are now $1 million. And I look at the younger generation that are not in the housing market yet. How are they going to break into the housing market? What are you doing?
If you're okay, I mean, this goes out to your listeners.
Yeah.
If you're making a high 6-figure income, and if you don't have at least 2 properties right now, you're fucking yourself.
100%.
You're literally raping yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And in doing it smartly, like I love.
Right, and I know that it sounds really awful the way that I just said that, but I'm saying I hope that they understand with not the first words, if they got virgin ears, they understand that you're doing yourself a disservice. Your future self is going to be pissed.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a strong believer in two. I don't like the residential aspect. I like commercial, and I like vacation rentals. I'm a huge vacation rental guy because it's steadily income, and they're coming in, they're leaving, they're high rolls, and if you market it properly, you'll have the place filled at an 80 to 90% occupancy, and no one's gonna sit there for 3 months and not pay rent. They're there for 2 nights and get the hell out. I love the vacation rental business. I think it's quick. If you purchase in the right spot, it's such a huge income.
That's what I love about Charleston. It's a real estate booming area. I mean, they're always building something.
Yeah.
And it's just a really growing place. It's a beautiful, gorgeous place. I don't know if you've ever been. Have you ever been to Charleston?
No. I drove by, but I've never been in there. We were talking about that the other time.
That's right. It's beautiful, like the beach, and man.
Oh yeah, it's got the southern beaches.
There's just something. I can smell the air. In my nostrils right now. It makes me want to go home. But there's nothing like that place, man, in the Carolinas. Different spots. I mean, of course, the more inland you get in South Carolina, and as in the Columbia area, that's the capital, and just a little bit more for the listeners are hearing this, maybe talking with the yang a little bit more. Hey y'all, you yump to over yonder. That type of
you miss it, huh? I can see in your eyes you miss it.
Yeah, I miss it. Well, it's been a while, man. It's been a hot minute. I mean, I'm normally
when's the last time you've been home?
So I've been over a year now, man.
Yeah, it's a long time.
That's a long time of not being able to. I don't know. It's always home. Like when you're home, you just relax.
It's a different feel. Just sitting down at that dinner table and having a meal with your parents, or having a conversation, having a coffee with your dad. There's nothing like that, and that's what I
having your mom make you a sandwich. She makes the best sandwiches. Like not that that's the only thing. You make fried chicken and of course in Italian. And of course, I made sauces and just tell you how much I'm missing home right now. I made sauces and peppers the other night, man. I haven't cooked sauces and peppers myself, like that type of recipe. And I cooked the sauce myself. That gravy, man, it was good. But as I sent a picture to Wes, he's like, "Man, I look so good." And I was like, "Man, I wish I could have my mom's though." Like I was like, "Man, I would die for my mom's right now." So
I'm gonna ask you one last question, and then we're gonna do something off the air. I always ask all my guests. I never have today questions. We talked about it. My podcast is just let's talk. But I always have one question at the end because I like to hear everybody's different perspective on it.
Sure.
If you were to pass today, your closest friends, your closest loved ones, how would you want to be remembered in a few words?
Just by the joy that I brought them. Not what I did and what I said or just the joy. Because there's been a lot of laughter and a lot of joy in my life. A lot. And especially the closest people to me.
Yeah.
That's all we do is laugh. If I'm not laughing, it's like I'm not alive. You know, I mean, I'm just not a miserable person. And I hope that they would understand that I wouldn't want them to cry around a damn grave because I'm not there. I'm not there.
I love
like,
that.
my body might be there, like what I left behind, but I'm not there. I'm over here, but I'm here. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to put on all our show notes how to get a hold of Chris, even Wes, and how to dial in and check out the Win-Win Effect podcast, which is an amazing podcast. They host it. Now I thought it was in the UK, but now it's a split. It's a hybrid. UK and
well,
US.
actually, it's funny. Real quick before we go, real quick, and I'll tell you, like I've already put it in, I guess, in the works.
Yeah.
You know, not a studio place. We'll get an office here because working from home is cool.
Yeah.
I like to work from. I can work from home, but I need a studio, right? I need a place where people can do photo shoots or whatever they need to do and record. We thought about doing is getting like the studio and having one side of like the office to look a certain way, and then having his place look exactly so it looks like we're there.
Mimic, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So on our show notes, we're gonna get all information how to get a hold of Chris, how to follow on social media, how to get a hold of him if you have any questions. Or if you're a company looking for sales advice or consulting or whatnot. So I'm going to get all the information on our show notes. And like I said, links to the Win-Win Effect and to Wes and Chris as well. Greatly appreciate you being on my podcast, brother. This means the world. So I'm grateful for our connection. I think this is going to be a long-term friendship. We have a good vibe going between each other, so I love it. I have a smile every time I talk to you, and it's when we know each other for a few weeks, essentially, right? So I love this.
It's been about like ever since our first conversation. I think I sent you a message, or either you sent me a message. I'm like I feel like I'm separated at birth, bro. You know, like I was like, holy shit. So it was great.
Any last minute things you want to say to our audience?
I mean, just guys, you know. And I know we dropped a lot of information here, and it can be kind of hard sometimes to dissect and break down and see how you can implement into your life.
Yeah.
But I want you to go back into all the things that have happened to you in life.
Yeah.
And understand that there's a hidden gift.
Love that.
In everything.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly, I don't know, whatever. And even the people that you meet, it's all about what you need to do moving forward and lessons you need to learn from things. So sometimes the biggest driving forces don't come from the greatest memories in your life, but when you pull and you draw from that adversity, that's your fuel, man.
I love it. Thank you, brother. This has been awesome.
I love it. Thank you, man. All right, guys, y'all take care. Peace out.
Guys. That's a wrap for today. I want to thank our guest, Chris Ross, for taking time out of his busy schedule to be a guest on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. Like all weeks, everyone, if you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did, please tell your friends, tell your family, spread the word. We're trying to build something special here. Leave a review. 5 stars would be absolutely amazing. Until next week, everyone, keep moving forward.